Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of ALS Clinical Trials Unboxed, brought to you by ALS Canada. This is a special episode. It's our first one that we're doing for 45 minutes, and I'm very excited about our guests that we have here today. Actually, in 2017 and 2018, I'm very proud that we ran a virtual research forum, which was before the pandemic when it wasn't cool yet. And one of the talks that we had was a gentleman named Nick Ramsey, who had done some work with someone named Mariska van Steensel, both in Utrecht in the Netherlands, around early brain-computer interface. And here we are today talking about a company, Synchron, who have made some leaps and bounds in terms of the potential use of brain-computer interface, and are looking here in Canada at a Focus Can Canadian clinical trial to start moving towards actually thinking about this being used as opposed to just conceptual, which is super exciting. So we're actually joined by three experts here today from Synchron. We're going to hear from Dr. Omid Forouzan, who is the VP Clinical and Medical Affairs. He leads the preparation and execution of the company's clinical trials and has a wealth of experience in medical technology, academia, medical device industry. So we're really pleased to have Dr. Forouzan here. We're also joined by Dr. Shahram Majidi, who is an associate professor of neurosurgery, neurology, and radiology at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York City. He is also the gentleman who first performed an endovascular BCI implant in the United States in 2022, which is really cool. And we're also joined, which is awesome, by Mariah Kane, who's an occupational therapist and assistive tech professional who has over 13 years of experience in helping people with neurological conditions, but is also a care services manager for the ALS Association in Minnesota at the associated with the Mayo Clinic, which is awesome to have an OT here for this as well. So that's it from me. I will pass it over to the folks from Synchron. Thank you so much for being here, and the floor is yours. And if you have any questions, anyone, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, and we'll get to them after the presentation. Thank you so much.
What if a simple thought could empower new ways to connect, communicate, and live more independently? That question has guided Synchron for over a decade.
And we're building something we think is going to be transformative.
Synchron was co-founded by CEO Dr. Tom Oxley, a neurointerventionalist specializing in treating the brain through blood vessels.
Technology capable of streaming direct thought for people who, through injury or disease, have lost the capacity to move or speak. A brain-computer interface.
It began in Australia with a mission to develop a safe and minimally invasive brain-computer interface, also called a BCI, that empowers connection and freedom for individuals living with neurological disorders affecting movement or communication. From that vision, a small founding team grew into a world-class group of experts spanning healthcare and technology. Synchron relocated to New York, completed 2 clinical trials involving 10 participants, and published groundbreaking research in some of the most respected medical journals.
Brain-computer interface is for people whose brain is still able to send out signals, but whose body is not receiving them.
Synchron is an investigational implantable brain-computer interface. It's designed to record a person's intention to move and transmit those commands outside the body where their limbs cannot, connecting to digital devices for communication and control. What makes Synchron unique is that this entire system is implanted without the need for open brain surgery. Our procedure is a first of its kind in the BCI space, based on decades of methods that cardiologists and
Charles, I think the video stopped.
Getting that fixed right now.
What if a simple thought could empower new ways to connect, communicate, and live more independently? That question has guided Synchron for over a decade.
And we're building something we think is going to be transformative.
Synchron was co-founded by CEO Dr. Tom Oxley, a neurointerventionalist specializing in treating the brain through blood vessels.
Technology capable of streaming direct thought for people who through injury or disease have lost the capacity to move or speak. A brain-computer interface.
It began in Australia with a mission to develop a safe and minimally invasive brain-computer interface, also called a BCI, that empowers connection and freedom for individuals living with neurological disorders affecting movement or communication. From that vision, a small founding team grew into a world-class group of experts spanning healthcare and technology. Synchron relocated to New York, completed 2 clinical trials involving 10 participants, and published groundbreaking research in some of the most respected medical journals.
Brain-computer interface is for people whose brain is still able to send out signals, but whose body is not receiving them.
Synchron is an investigational implantable brain-computer interface. It's designed to record a person's intention to move and transmit those commands outside the body where their limbs cannot, connecting to digital devices for communication and control. What makes Synchron unique is that this entire system is implanted without the need for open brain surgery. Our procedure is a first of its kind in the BCI space, based on decades of methods that cardiologists and neurologists have already proven safe. We implant our BCI through the blood vessels using a minimally invasive approach, similar to placing a stent. This design prioritizes patient safety and will eventually allow the procedure to be performed in communities around the world, not just a handful of elite medical centers. But the most beautiful thing about this technology is how it empowers people to be themselves. The Synchron BCI is designed to restore a sense of self and connection that may have been impacted by paralysis. At its core, our technology is about giving people control over their lives, enabling communication, fostering independence, protecting privacy, and giving people the power to make their own choices. Sending a text to a loved one, controlling the environment around you, or directing your healthcare. These actions, which are easily taken for granted, become powerful ways to live life on your own terms. Synchron has formed collaborations with some of the leading names in the consumer technology industry, like Apple and NVIDIA, to remain on the cutting edge of what's possible. The technology is investigational and still evolving, but every interaction, every click, is a step toward redefining what's possible and helping people reclaim their place in the world. Our design philosophy is simple. We design with our users, not for them. By listening to their voices through thousands of hours of research and countless conversations with advocacy groups, we're developing a device that directly addresses their needs.
It was kind of a whirlwind. I was admitted into the program very quickly, and was thrilled to be involved in the groundbreaking, I guess, if you will, research and development of this, the BCI.
It's exciting stuff. I mean, I talk about it as though it's every day sort of thing that you do, but I still get very excited about what it can do and what it does do. And Peter will attest to this, that we will have a 2.5 hour session or go for 4 hours sometimes, because we just go on, one more, we can do it, you know. So it's great, it really is.
Discover the future with us and join in on the journey at synchronbci.com.
I think it's my time now. So hello, everybody. As David said, my name is Mariah Kane. I am an occupational therapist. I worked full-time at Mayo Clinic down in Minnesota for over 10 years as a staff therapist, and then have now transitioned over to the ALS Association down in Minnesota as well. So as an OT, my job is to help somebody regain their independence with everyday activities that they find meaningful. That usually means creating goals for them that increase their independence, their autonomy, or allow them to maintain some sense of privacy. There are 3 core needs I see every day at my clinic that being independent entails. And while new technology has found ways to help people living with ALS maintain their independence, it continues to be insufficient to meet the needs throughout someone's entire journey living with ALS. So what's the problem? With ALS, the cause of losing independence, autonomy, and privacy comes down to the issue with signal transmission. A person living with ALS has the intention to move a body part, but that signal is disrupted by the disease and never makes it to the muscles, limbs, voice, or eyes to carry out the intention. We have these existing solutions, and these assistive technologies that we use with is are really not in competition, but working together to help keep somebody as independent and keep their autonomy. But it's unreliable and it's falling short. Eye trackers, for instance, may require multiple calibrations, precise positioning, or even create eye strain. Voice assistants may become unreliable throughout the day as your voice fatigues. And when they are working, users can lose their privacy as everyone in the room can hear exactly what they're doing with their device. Physical switches also rely on specific movement that can be compromised not only by fatigue and positioning, but also the environment that you're in. All of these technologies are amazing on their own, but they fail to deliver full independence that people with living with ALS deserve because it's not going after the root problem, that failed motor transmission. I would love for you to say, take my word for it, but Synchron did do a survey with over 150 OTs and speech therapists who have worked with individuals with limb impairment, and only 6% felt that the existing technologies fully restored independence and autonomy to their clients. What I would like to tell you more, though, is my personal experience as an OT working with individuals who use these technologies. And I have two examples I want to share with you specifically, because these are not isolated incidents, but rather a broad theme that I've experienced as an OT. My first example focuses on the barriers of eye gaze and eye trackers. While eye gaze is a wonderful technology to help extend independent access to digital devices, it has shortcomings that I cannot solve with other potential solutions. While the limitations of being outside in sunlight are well known, I want to highlight how the reliability of even consistent motor movement in the eyes is impacted by loss of motor movements in other areas. I worked with a woman living with ALS who did not have active use of her limbs and could no longer speak. She relied on a speech generating device with eye gaze to ensure she could communicate with those around her and also interact with different programs and applications that were important to her. However, she could not use her eye gaze device for more than a few minutes without needing to be repositioned and the device recalibrated, not due to what her eyes were doing, but due to position changes and challenges related to weakness and spasticity in her head and neck. I would work with her caregiver to position her perfectly to the device so she could use it. But as she used the device, her positioning would change and compromise the device's ability to read her motor movement, and her access would be lost. This prevented her device from using it to alert her family she needed help or to be repositioned. Both she and her caregiver did not feel safe leaving her more alone for more than 5 to 10 minutes at a time due to this. It did not matter what kind of changes I made to her positioning or what her speech therapist made to the layout of her device software. We were not able to find a solution where she could use it independently throughout the day or even for one of her full activities. My second example focuses on a man I treated whose ALS had started with weakness in his arms. He was able to walk without assistance. He had no changes to his speech. And he was an avid user of his voice assistant, both within his home and on his phone as much as possible. However, we worked to find a way where he could independently use his phone in a loud and busy environment since he enjoyed socializing. His frustration centered on two main concepts. The first was the fact that even if he repeated his phrase or his command, his device would not always hear him correctly. And at times, it would get stuck to a point where he would need a friend or a passerby to physically touch his phone for it to complete the task or reset the speech assistant to hear him correctly. The other was that he intentionally had to avoid certain tasks he did because he did not want people hearing what he was doing. And we could think it would, a lot of people think it's, oh, it's about medical or personal, but for him, it was just as simple as what he was scrolling on YouTube for. That was important to him, that it was between him and his phone and what he wanted to watch. The best thing we could do was try to improve the quality of his microphone through a Bluetooth headset. That way we could try to lessen the errors and the degree of loudness when he talked. In both these examples, the AT failed because it required motor movement that was either not reliable or no longer available. We need a device that doesn't rely on active movement, but rather back to the intent to move. As BCI has a promise to address this better, to address the independence and autonomy and privacy, because it doesn't require on that motor signal transmission. It reads the intentions of someone's movements and sends it directly to the digital device. It eliminates the need for physical motor control. The BCI is effectively creating a brain-controlled keypad or mouse, allowing users to operate an iPad or other digital device by thinking about limb movement, not having to move a limb or move your eyes. As a clinician, I'm really excited about the promise that BCI could help bring and help deliver to others in terms of independence, autonomy, and privacy. It would allow them to have that continuous connection to a digital device. It would lessen the need to have recalibrations. It's easy to learn. It's always always available, which to me is one of the biggest benefits. It's why the promise of BCI is not a salvage therapy after everything else fails, but as a medical device provided to individuals living with ALS early in their journey. This way, it can promote ongoing participation and independence in meaningful daily activities and enrich quality of life. Next, we're going to play a video that illustrates how the Synchron BCI technology works to allow you the potential to access your digital device throughout your journey living with ALS.
Motor signals from the brain travel to muscles, enabling daily tasks like navigating the computer with a mouse. Individuals with motor impairment retain these brain signals, but the inability to transmit them to muscles and limbs makes these everyday activities challenging or impossible. Synchron BCI, a minimally invasive device inserted into brain blood vessels, detects electrical signals related to intended movement. These signals are transmitted wirelessly outside the body and are decoded into digital actions that can be read by a computer or other technology, enabling individuals with motor impairment to regain autonomy and independence through digital control using only their thoughts. The Synchron BCI marks a significant step forward in giving people with paralysis independent control of digital devices 24/7.
Hey, good afternoon. Shram Majidi here. Such an honor to be here this afternoon. I am a neurologist and neuroendovascular surgeon. I am one of the neurointerventional PIs for COMMAND trial, which was the first endovascular BCI study in the United States. Today, I will try to use my time to elaborate a little on procedural and technical aspects of implanting stent road BCI. Next slide. So the stent road BCI has three different components. Stent itself, which is placed within the vein inside the brain, next to the area of the brain that controls motor movements, and a transceiver, which is a small device similar to pacemaker, placed in the chest underneath the skin to receive the signal and then transfer that signal through Bluetooth to the outside, the third component, which is a processor, and that will translate the signal to digital motor output to control digital devices such as cell phone or tablet. But let's just see how Stentrode differentiates itself from different and other types of BCI that we had in the past few decades. If we show the next slide, as you see here, during this procedure, we are not violating the brain anatomy. Instead of making a drill through the skull or doing a craniotomy, removing the bone, we are deploying the Stentrode through catheter angiography, navigating within the vessels without causing any injury to the brain anatomy. As you see here, the Stentrode is placed in the area of the brain next to the area that controls motor signals. And the second component, as I explained, was the small pacemaker in the chest. And what we have seen with the other types of BCI, invasive types of BCI, over time, because of the inflammatory reaction from the brain towards the electrode, the signal intensity start to drop and weaken. However, with Stentrode, because the device stent itself and electrodes remain within the vessels, and the endothelialization, which happens in the next several weeks, it further stabilizes the signal intensity, and the signal that we received basically highlights the longevity of the signal transfer with this platform. Therefore, we are not only using the invasive approach. With this minimally invasive approach, we have a simple, pragmatic model, which also deliver a long-term signal connectivity. This really differentiates Stentrode against other BCI models. All of our patients, they come to the hospital, they stay in the hospital only one night, and the next day they can be discharged home with very fast and robust recovery. If we can go to the next slide. So overall, 10 patients globally has had the Stentrode implanted in 2 different studies. The first one was SWITCH trial, which was in Australia several years ago. 4 patients with ALS volunteered for that study. All 4 patients received the device successfully. There was no safety side effects, and the result was published in JAMA Neurology in 2023. And then that enabled us to obtain FDA IDE approval to do the United States study, which was COMMAND trial. So early feasibility study to demonstrate safety and feasibility of Stentrode implantation. So totally among 3 different sites, we implanted 6 patients with severe paralysis over the course of 2 years. All the safety endnotes were achieved. There was no device-related side effects or permanent side effects from the implantation. And the study is now under review for publication, as we have followed all the patients for 12 months duration of the follow-up. So what we learned from COMMAND trials, so this was the first FDA-approved ID trial of permanently implanted BCI in the United States. As I mentioned, the safety points were achieved. There was no severe adverse event related to Stentrode, brain, or vasculature, and we demonstrated the ease of deployment, the accuracy of delivery of the Stentrode, because the technical expertise and complexity that is required for placement of this Stentrode is widely available among the neuroendovascular surgeons. This is a very common procedure that we do when we place stent in carotid artery or inside the brain for aneurysm treatment or venous stenosis or stroke prevention. Therefore, the procedure itself is very straightforward, very easy with fast recovery, as it was also demonstrated in the COMMAND trial. Let me go to the next slide, please. Then I will quickly illustrate one of the patients that was enrolled in COMMAND trial. This is Mark, a 63-year-old gentleman with ALS, which started in August 2020 with progressive weakness in the left hand, which then progressed to bilateral upper extremities. And eventually, after the symptoms progression, he was evaluated at Emory University in Atlanta in 2022 and was diagnosed with ALS. Mark received stent road within COMMAND trials, as you will see in the next slide, which demonstrates the exact moment that actually he see the successful activation of connectivity of the device after recovery. You see how emotional he is. And after having this minimally invasive procedure, the signal is being transferred to the outside processor in this moment. And to the next slide. So yes, we do show the simplicity and safety and feasibility of placement of stent road, but we should also be able to demonstrate how this platform can improve patient autonomy, independence, and connectivity to the outside world, which, as you see here, these are just few examples of how Mark was able to connect independently to outside world, to communicate with his loved one or with his doctors, chatting with his friends, or doing some online shopping or controlling the smart home through stent road by just thinking. So these are just a short explanation and illustration of what we have done so far in the United States. And I will stop here and happy to take questions at the end.
All right. Thank you very much, Sharam. So far, hopefully you've enjoyed the content and it's been useful so far. So far, Mariah talked about the application of BCI in our lives, how we can use it, what it addresses in patients' lives, and Sharam talked about the procedure. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the device components, about the trial we have in Canada, and then please stay until the end because I want to talk about how to be part of this, how to be part of this journey, how to be part of the trial, and how to get more information. So, starting with the components of the system, the first component, as Sharam also mentioned, is the stent road. The stent road is a proprietary stent that senses motor intent signals. It's implanted in the vein near the brain, and because it reads the intent or just a thought of a movement, not actually a physical movement itself, it allows for a point of access that is consistent throughout your journey living with ALS. And it's placed endovascularly, so which means, as again Sharam mentioned, it does not need to perform craniotomy or cutting or any kind of modification to the skull, any procedure on the skull, but it's through a needle, basically endovascular procedure like a stent deployment. The second component that I want to mention is the transceiver device. So transceiver is placed, another implanted component, which is placed on the same day that stent road is placed. It's placed in the upper chest area, either left or right. It's very similar to a pacemaker battery or deep brain stimulation. And it takes data from stent road. It's connected to stent road with a small lead or wire. And it takes data from stent road and transmits out of the body. So, and it's designed to recharge wirelessly, which ensures, years of longevity. Again, the form factor, everything is very similar to pacemakers that are commercially available. Then the last component I want to mention is a computer. It's a computer that's outside, near the patient, and it takes data from transceiver wirelessly, and it converts those signals into digital action on a computer or a patient phone. So as you see here, each time the patient moves their hand, think about moving their hand, not actually moving it, just a thought, an attempt of moving their hand, making a fist, that creates a signal that could be picked up by that computer, and it could be programmed to be connected to an action that it's almost like working with a cell phone, either tapping or scrolling through a cell phone. So this is how Synchron BCI system enables a patient to gain control of their digital devices and gain independence and autonomy. So Sharam mentioned the trials that we have completed. The next trial, which is recently approved, is the Focus Canada trial. We're very excited about this trial. This is with 10 patients, 10 individuals with MND, specifically ALS. We're going to have up to 3 sites in Canada. Currently, we're going through the activation process. The trial is approved by Health Canada. The final stages of the REB or review ethics board is being completed, and in the next coming weeks, you'll hear more about activation and how to be part of the trial. If you go to the next slide, please. Now, a little bit about, actually, stay on the last one. I wanted to mention a bit more details on the trial. So who are the participants? Adult with ALS, severe bilateral upper limb motor impairment, limited or no functional use of arms or hands. Inclusion exclusion, by the way, will be available on trials.gov very soon, and you can check it publicly available soon. But most importantly, we want to make sure that patients are motivated and cognitively able to participate to regain independence of digital access. There will be sessions that we will run that we will work with the patients very closely and the caregivers at their home to train our algorithms and also train the patient and measure how we can use using these digital motor outputs that we talked about and measuring independent control of digital devices over time and how this function is improved in patients, how it's changed. In terms of safety, which is the primary endpoint, we have multiple follow-up checkpoints proactively in the first year with CT scans, and then extended safety follow-ups goes until 3 years for the trial. Of course, the support that we provide through our staff will remain forever, indefinitely, basically after the 3 years. So that's support always stays. Now, if you go to the next slide, please. So I mentioned briefly the home sessions. So being part of the trial means becoming part of Synchron family. So Synchron field specialists will be coming to your homes on a weekly basis, somewhere around like 8 to 10 hours a week during multiple sessions. And this is basically a large part of the trial is working towards the goal of the user, which is the front and center of what we want to achieve. But also on the side of it, we want to make sure to learn as much as possible to make this device better, improve it, and make new features available for future patients and future users. So this means sometimes the field specialists, which all of them, for example, the 2 team members that are shown here, Reagan and Maria, with extensive patient-facing backgrounds and medical backgrounds, we will be representing activities from our engineering and data science team to test different ways that the product could work better. And sometimes these activities are just a few hours in a month. Sometimes it could take up to majority of those hours that I mentioned in the week. And again, our main priority is to make sure that user safety and comfort is considered. So these are basically, we ask individuals to commit to minimum number of hours in the week, but we know we're going to be flexible around what's doable and what's possible for patients. So don't think of this as a super strict every week always, of course, it makes the trial better. We can optimize learning, but we always keep patient priority in mind, obviously, needless to say. If you go to the next slide. So aside from the trial that I mentioned, I wanted to share information about Synchron BCI community. So a core value that we believe in Synchron is that we design with our users, not just for the users. So at Synchron, our user obviously include the individuals with lived experiences, but it's not just limited to those individuals, but we also want to understand the care partners, therapy teams, neurologists, and everybody that will be eventually involved to make brain-computer interfaces successful for the patient, for the community. And we do this currently through two pillars. One is the advocacy groups, some listed here, and also direct feedback from our potential users that I mentioned. So, and this is a very good means for us to directly get information and convey information exchange, either get and also present to you the opportunities that are coming up. So to date, our team has conducted over 300 interviews with individuals with lived experiences and the care teams through these pathways that I mentioned. And we've spent thousands of hours listening to the community and understanding the needs. So this is a very important piece I wanted to mention today. And with this, if you go to the last slide, I want to invite you to join Synchron BCI community, the synchronbci.com/Canada. And we provide education on BCI so you can learn more about the therapy. A lot of the information that I mentioned about the trial will be there online. You can access what sites are there, how to get engaged, how to get involved. So not just the BCI, but also Synchron trials. Also, we want to make sure the voice of users, as I mentioned in the last slide, and the care teams are fully heard and understood when we're making important design decisions and considerations, which will impact, future releases and, insurance providers, regulatory agencies, and all that. So if you're interested, I strongly invite you to join synchronbci.com/Canada to learn about the trial and help us to progress the field forward, move the field forward. At the end, I wanted to basically finish with a quote from a patient, from our first patient implanted with Synchron BCI. He said, "It's been exciting to participate in an endeavor that has shaped science fiction into medical fact. I'm extremely proud to be the first of what will be many beneficiaries of this technology." So I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you again for your time today, and I hope you've enjoyed the content so far.
Thank you to all three of you very much for that presentation. I think there will be a lot of interest in this, as I'm sure you've got when you were in the US and also in Australia, though I guess it was a long time ago in Australia by BCI terms. And I'm sure going back and eventually will be just as much excitement. I want to say, first of all, I'm very appreciative that on one of the slides it talks about reasonable expectation for the trials. I think that's super important because I'm sure there will be high interest. And then just reminding people, obviously, this is a clinical trial and you're taking that next step, and really appreciate that you talked about advancing the science. So actually, I wanted to hit off on a couple quick questions here. One of them is really, there will be a lot of interest, we assume, from what we've heard. When people are interested, what will the selection criteria be, or who makes those selections in terms of who might participate in a trial? If you've got way more people interested that are eligible, will that be through the clinics that are connected to? Will that be Synchron? How will that work?
So I'll jump in. Ultimate decider of who's going to be in the trial will be through the principal investigator at the clinics. So that's the ultimate decision maker. We work closely with them to make sure that we help them make the best decision on finding the right candidates, choosing the right candidates that could benefit and optimize that selection to make sure we make the best of their time. So it's a collaboration. The ultimate decision stays with the PI, and then. I want to emphasize again, the best way to get in, not only just learn about the trial, but also be on that list of being considered for a trial is to join Synchron BCI community.
Great. That's fantastic. So we do have a couple questions from audience. I did want to touch on one thing, which is, so this is a safety trial, and I think, Dr. Majidi, you mentioned about endothelialization, which means, I guess it didn't shift, and it has a really nice way that it incorporates. And then this is a safety trial again. Um, how complicated is it in the next steps when you want to start to take this into, and this is probably a good question for all three of you, including for sure for Mariah as well, when you want to take that to something clinically meaningful. So, going from the steps of this is safe, that this hits certain, engineering metrics that you want, but then to the point of in a very rapidly evolving world in terms of connectivity, how do you design those endpoints that are going to be able to say this is clearly advantageous to quality of life for those individuals? And open that to any of the three of you who want to respond.
I can go first, or Shram, if you wanna jump in.
No, that's okay. I will follow you.
So I wanted to mention that, yeah, so a lot of what you're saying, David, is is the point of the exploration and the goal of this trial. We want to explore in this trial and see how to effectively measure all of that. So we want to make array of different activities available for the patients in this trial, and then through systemic measurements of how patients can effectively achieve completion of activities and their experience, we want to optimize and learn how to effectively measure and design an endpoint so that the endpoint around the assessment of efficacy is something that we want to, this work is going to be a core part of developing that.
Awesome. Thank you. So there was oh, sorry, Dr. Majidi,
No,
you're unmuted.
I completely agree. Yeah, safety is only the first step, right? So we just show, okay, this is safe, straightforward, easy to implant, with not causing any harm. But in terms of really, yeah, in the long term, showing actual efficacy, we should be able to come up with some measurable outcomes, like, okay, if the patient needed 24/7 caregiver always being there with him, if this device is enabling the patient to lower the number of the hours that he or she needs a caregiver, now the patient is able to communicate with outside world without any extra help. I think that's a measurable outcome. Things like that, as we all know, the BCI Society is actively challenging itself to develop those measurable outcomes that we will see in future trials.
I saw Mariah, you came off mute, so maybe you have an opinion on this too.
I have one thing
Okay,
to add,
sure.
and I would say just basically put it excites me as an OT because it's gonna, once they establish the safety and then that digital control, that's what we get to use to take it back to the end user and collaborate and say, what's important to you? I have this access point now. Let's do that. Right now, I don't have that. Like I kind of illustrated, we hit a wall and I can't go beyond it. And I think now it will actually give the end users an ability to tell us even better what's important and how we can make this a better tool for them.
Fantastic. Thank you. So there are a couple of practical questions that I want to make sure I hit off on. One is whether sedation or anesthesia is required for insertion of the device, and if so, is it a lot of either?
Well, yes, anesthesia is required. We prefer to do this procedure under general anesthesia to eliminate any artifact from movement and make it comfortable for the patient as well.
Great. And in terms of speed, so someone's thinking about if someone wanted to type a sentence or someone wanted to move click on something on an iPad and get a response with it. Is there any way to be able to speak to sort of how much of a difference there would be through the BCI versus being able to do it yourself, like with motor control of your own?
So I guess I'll jump in. So for the speed, I think if I want to split that question into two parts, speed of how fast does it transmit signal? That's within, sub-seconds. It's just within fraction of a second you can get the signal transmitted to the computer. And then and basically you can get the end result quickly. However, so latency is pretty low, not really sensible. The second part, which was how quickly can you type a sentence? So that's the part that, the training around and how we can optimize by learning as we get mature about how to train the patients. The training of using a system. So imagine, if I want to type, when I want to type a text versus, my daughter wants to type a text, it's very different. A teenager wants to type a text. It's just very different. She's much faster than me. So it's just, again, I'm just saying there are differences in terms of employing and using the techniques as you learn. And this is something that's going to improve for the patient. So a lot of using the entire end-to-end delivery of a sentence typing, it's a multi-variable, say, metric that another thing that we want to measure and we want to make sure that we can optimize. I don't know if Mariah, you want to add anything, or Dr. Majidi.
I have one thought, and that's to agree about the timing, because one thing that I would see is not just about how fast you move, but the errors you make. So, and I'm sure people have seen where the more you want to do, you might get tired, or even within the task, it changes. So maybe it's technically you can get to what you're wanting to do faster, but the accuracy is not there. So that's another piece of looking at where this, or why I'd be excited to see what this device can do from an accuracy standpoint for doing what you want it to do, as well as it being able to move around no matter where you are. Like it has less limitations because it's on intent.
Amazing. Well, I think that's super cool, and we do have to wrap up. And I urge everyone who's interested to go and learn more, as was noted. And I think one of the coolest aspects about this as well is the integration with the ALS community, and it seems like again an integration with the things that people tend to use on a daily basis, Apple products, and you had said Nvidia, and I know there was something about Amazon, and so it just making those connections for people to make it really adapt to where people are at in terms of their connectivity is very cool. So, if anyone has further questions, and in the chat, we will definitely send those over and try to get you those answers. But that's all we have time for today. So I want to thank all three of you again for coming today for the presentation. Thank you to
Thank you.
Synchron, and letting everyone know that there will be a post-webinar survey. So please feel free to fill that out so we can hopefully make this unboxed webinar series as best as possible for the audience. So it's in the chat, so you can see it from Umiyanga there. And thank you everyone for your time, and we hope to see you again at the next episode of ALS Clinical Trials Unboxed. Thanks so much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Thanks,
Thank
David.
you.
Thank you.